I think a good thing to touch on this would be the boarding facility, because that is what we advise people to do if they are going away on vacation. There are 78 member societies across the country, so they would be in a better position to comment on whether the boarding was fuller than last year or emptier than last year. What we will say, though, is that we are inclined to think that when the president addressed the nation just before Christmas and mentioned the closing of the beaches, I think a lot of people then canceled their vacation. And so maybe that affected our boarding and less people went on holiday. So that's what we can say about that. Another thing with the COVID-19 situation is that even though it may have affected vacations, it did not affect us as the SPCA. We still continued with our work. We still carried on with cruelty complaints and proactive inspections to ensure that the welfare of animals was not affected.
As the SPCA, you're urging people to find alternative accommodation for their pets while they're away. What are the options that people can explore?
So, just as I mentioned earlier, boarding would be first prize. This can be found at local societies or other animal welfare organizations. There are also a number of private boarding facilities across the country. If you're unable to put your pet into a boarding facility, then you can obviously find somebody that you trust and is reliable to come and check on your pet at your house, or you can leave them with somebody that you trust and is reliable that will be able to look after them while you're away.
And when it comes to really looking at the details behind pet care when people are away, we've often seen cases where people have not had access to the boarding facilities that you speak of, often leaving their animals behind with food and water. But of course, it's never really enough. What needs to be understood about people who may be thinking of opting for that way of taking care of their animals?
I think just as you said, it's really not enough to just leave a large amount of food and water, because a number of things could go wrong. Your dog could tip all the water over, and what then? If you're gone for a week, does it mean that the animal must now be left without water for the next 7 days? If your pet gets injured or escapes from the property, what happens then? Especially now around the festive season and the New Year, we deal with fireworks, and we all know that fireworks have a negative effect on animals. So if you've now left them alone with just food and water and the fireworks are going off, what happens then to the animal if they try to escape or go through the gate or jump through a window? So it's definitely not enough to just leave food and water, because of a number of other things that could go wrong besides just access to food and water.
You speak about fireworks, and in terms of understanding the safety precautions that need to be taken for pet owners and perhaps people who don't even own pets, what should they be noting?
I think, yeah, exactly like you just said, it falls into two categories. It falls into the first category, which is if you have pets, it comes down to being a responsible owner and taking part in responsible ownership, which we'll touch on just now. And the second part is just being a considerate person. And that goes out to the people who may or may not have pets, but will be using fireworks. So if we touch on the first part, being a responsible owner, all comes down to knowing that this animal counts and depends on you to prepare adequately, because you know better. And we put out a number of tips on how you can do that. And the second part about being considerate is just taking into consideration what animals go through. Like I said earlier, fireworks really, they frighten animals, and when animals act on this fear that we see just how bad of an effect fireworks have on animals. And that's where we see dogs jumping through windows, or horses trying to break through their stables, animals going missing, that sort of thing. The other thing with fireworks, while we're talking about it, is apart from the effect that fireworks have on animals when they go off, there's also the issue of when people use fireworks to inflict suffering on an animal intentionally. And that's what we're seeing now. There's a video that's busy making its rounds around Facebook and other social media platforms, where we see a group of people who have inserted a firecracker into the rectal cavity or opening of a chicken. And this chicken is still very much alive. And they proceed to light the firework and release the chicken, which, ultimately the firework then explodes while still inside the chicken. And that's extreme cruelty. So yeah, it's quite hectic. And with that, we calling on the public to try and help us find these perpetrators, um, because we don't know where it is or who the person is or where it happened. So yeah.
You speak about extreme cruelty, and perhaps in some instances, people might not necessarily be aware that they are inflicting cruelty on animals. Should one notice such behavior, what options are available to report this matter?
Again, it just comes down to, I think the people who would notice if an animal is reacting badly to a situation, or the pet owners, and possibly a stray pet. So if you are a pet owner, you know that people are going to be using fireworks now as we go into the new year. So you need to prepare adequately for that. And you can do that, again, by following the tips that we have put onto our social media or that's on our website. And if you see that your animal is reacting negatively, hopefully you are home with your pet, because then you'll be in control you'll be in control of the situation. Um, and if you see that there's an animal that's out in the street that's perhaps run away or has jumped through a window or has jumped through the gate and is injured, um, the local SPCAs, your local SPCA should be open. We're open 24/7. So you're more than welcome to bring the animal there. Alternatively, you can contact your local SPCA on the emergency line, and they should be able to step in and assist you with that.
And very lastly, before we let you go, Keshvi, what are some of the trends that you've noticed over the years when it comes to the number of animals that the SPCA has picked up during this time of a lot of excitement and fireworks in terms of the different kinds of animals?
Um, Naturally, well, around this time of the year, we always see an increase in the amount of animals that get brought in, especially after Christmas and after New Year's. And I think that's because a lot of pets run away, try to escape, try to find a hiding space from the setting off of the fireworks. So we definitely see an increase around that time. And we also see, after New Year's, a lot of the animals that do get brought in are usually injured. Again, like I said, from things like jumping through windows or trying to get through the gate in an attempt to find a hiding place or to escape from the setting off of the fireworks.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time.